3 years ago, the OECD came together with the NCEE in Washington and a number of high-performing systems, and we created a project called High Performing Systems for Tomorrow. We had two questions. One, how might the best systems in the world pool what they know to improve their learning systems even further? A sort of final 5% question. And the second question was, as we look towards the world of AI, artificial intelligence, how might learning systems, the best in the world, again, need to develop and respond? And I wanted to talk now about the second of those questions, the AI question. This is work in progress. No country is bound to its conclusions. At the moment, it's just a very interesting conversation, but it could be influential, and it's certainly worth doing. It's led us to think about education for human flourishing, and it's that I want to unpack a bit right now. So, what does AI mean for human beings? Well, it has an economic, a political meaning, and also meaning for us as individuals. Economically, AI could sweep away those jobs that have not already been automated, casting billions out of work. Politically, well, it could be that AI algorithms start to take the political decisions that these days, right now, we think we take for ourselves in communities and at the ballot box. AI might say, well, this is how you've always voted before. Why not just do that again? In terms of our individual personalities, our sense of who we are, well, for many centuries, rightly or wrongly, human beings have felt that they were the sentient ones. It was humans who knew, who understood. Could be that over the next few years, a generation of machines will come through that can make that claim for themselves. And where will that leave us, our sense of who we are? So on those grounds, AI matters. It matters to educators more than what will AI do in the classroom to enhance ed tech, though it'll do a lot of things. It really matters because it creates a different world in which education requires something different altogether. So what do we mean by the flourishing life, human flourishing? Go back to Aristotle, writing 2,500 years ago, he said, the flourishing life consists of moral, reason-infused activities, meaningful for the individual, and have a significance in the world. That's what Aristotle wrote, and in many ways Confucius wrote in similar fashion in another part of the world. So could you still say that any of that is relevant, that Aristotelian concept, in an AI world? I think you could. We certainly need to take a bigger perspective. Climate change, social justice, biotech, the ability for rich people to buy a different kind of future, an enhanced future for their children. All of these things tell us that we now need to think more of sustainable values for the human race as a whole, less of situational values for me here today. But I certainly think that with robots coming, it'll also be important that we are moral-infused, reason-infused individuals. Those are surely things that we associate less with robots than with us. So the case for Aristotle in many ways holds good. And therefore, education's responsibility is to equip us for human flourishing, defined just like that. Again, reason-infused moral activities that make us feel we're meaningful and also give us some sense of significance in the world. Well, over the last few years, the OECD has thought very hard about education for 2030. So what's the difference between emerging views on education for the AI world and education for 2030? I think there are two in particular, one to do with orientation, the other to do with competences. Orientation, 2030, that work suggested that the real orientation, what should characterize educated people, would be co-agency. Making things happen, taking responsibility, and doing it with others. That must be important. But for an AI world, could there be something else as well? Simply, and a bigger thought, the orientation towards the future. Being future ready is one thing, though perhaps a bit bloodless. Being future literate, knowing how to think about the future, to anticipate, that's got to be something else. But also, I think there's something in those leadership programs, for example, Otto Scharmer's work at MIT in the States, which see us as systems thinkers working with others to co-imagine, to co-inspire, to co-create a better future. I think that a futures orientation conceived like that could be powerful and could drive forward education for human flourishing. Secondly, competences. The 2030 work suggested that we all needed a small set of complex competencies, typically put together by adding cognitive skills, social and emotional skills, values, and attitudes. And that seems right. But the AI work puts forward 3 particular competencies, very complex, I think, that might distinguish us absolutely from what machines will be able to do. One is adaptive expertise. This is problem solving, our old friend, which has in many ways characterized education for 30 years. But adaptive problem solving, taking the ideas and the skills built in one situation and transferring them into another different situation and solving that problem, something that AI finds difficult. The second distinguishing competence might be ethical decision making, putting metacognition to the center, but taking decisions about our own lives, the lives of others, and the lives of others in a bigger frame, the political frame. How can we bring humility and multiple perspectives and knowledge of ourselves in every sense in order to be ethical decision makers, perspectival metacognition? And the third competence, distinguishing, I think, humans from robots, could be aesthetic perception, that ability to judge what is beautiful and what is fine, something, again, that robots don't excel at, as far as we know, yet. So that is the work that the OECD has been doing with partner countries. There are other related questions that we're thinking about. If that's what humans should learn for a human flourishing life in the world of AI, in what learning environments, assessed how, what might that mean for teachers, and how could teachers support individuals in these critical ways? And finally, what might it mean for the design of systems? All of that lies ahead, and we certainly expect to work on in this area for another 3 years or so. We feel that this work could be a North Star for some of the OECD's programs, including PISA, and that it could make a real difference for systems, for schools, for teachers, and for school leaders, and above all, for learners. So work in progress, but valuable work, pioneering work, and I hope you'll watch this space.